Howdy folks. Today we are going to talk a little bit about media queries. Media queries are extremely useful for making your web page change in response to the media in which it's being viewed. One of the most common things that they're used for is handling different screen sizes such as mobile versus desktop. Let's get started. So here's the example we're going to be working with right now. This is a very simple web page. I've got my body and I've got just some text on it. And when I come in here, nothing shows up. Now, let's pull this into the side here. I can see that my text is there, but it's also invisible. It's not showing up. But if I go to print, it does show up. How do we do that? Well, let's look at our CSS. So in the CSS here, we have a couple of things. For one, we have the body is just taking up the full page. The div itself has a font size set to 60. Now we have two @ queries. Now these particular queries that start with the @ sign here are designed to tell CSS how to process various blocks of CSS. So you can see in here, indented. You don't have to indent it, it's just a good stylistic thing. This looks kind of like a rule set for CSS, similar to how we have our div here, we have our parenthesis and the rules inside. Here we have our @media screen, and then our curly braces, not parenthesis, and then we have our rules, but this is a whole other selector in here. So these are almost kind of like meta rules. Now, @media tells CSS that we're going to be adding in some rules, or these rules are only going to apply for certain types of media. And then afterwards we say screen. Now what screen says is, hey, is this being displayed on a screen? If so, these rules apply. That's why if I go here, you can see this div display none is taking effect because it's part of that screen media query. However, if I go to print, this is no longer a screen, this is now the print media, which means that this rule is now taking effect and this one is not. This follows the same rules with normal CSS. Things that are lower down take precedence. So if I had another div down here that did something to display, that would take precedence. And it follows the same cascading as well. So specificity of selectors and things like that. However, this was just a way to turn on and off different rule sets based on this. So one of the common ways this can be used for is by making certain elements behave differently when you are going to print as opposed to be on your screen. But one of the most common things we do with this is screen size. All right, so let's say here I have a couple of elements in here. One, and let's just pull a couple others. Oops. Put a bunch of elements in here. And I want to call this my container. Okay. And I'm going to add in, I'm going to get rid of all this for now. And I'm going to say, okay, any div inside a container is going to have a width of 100 pixels, height of 100 pixels, and a background color of green. And what does that look like? Okay, bunch of stuff there. Now, maybe I want these all to be a little bit bigger, right? Because they don't take up a lot of that space. So maybe I say, let's make that 500. Maybe put a little bit of padding in between them too. Okay, that definitely looks better. Scrolling down there. But let's say maybe I want this to get smaller as I make the screen smaller. So right now at about this size, looks pretty good. But maybe as I get down here, I want this right side to be a little more empty. So I want these to be a little bit more small. So what I could do is I actually could have my width and height based on the screen size. So I could have it maybe 50 VW. And that's actually going to make them grow and shrink, as that does. But that's not always the best. You can't always handle that or doing something like that. So what I want to say is, okay, maybe I've got some text on this side, so I generally want some chunk of this to be free. And after I get to maybe, let's say, about 800 pixels, you can notice that little selector up there as you make it bigger and smaller. Actually, let's do this. This is where your device toolbar can be really useful. So to get that in your inspector, toggle the device toolbar up here at the top. And now you can just kind of drag. It also puts it in the mobile view, so you can see the cursor becomes this almost like a touch point. Let me go back to that. So let's say I've got something on the right there, maybe at about 800, right? Any less than 800 and I'm going to start having trouble. Maybe I should actually put that in there. Let's do that. Let's take our outer, pop this in there. I'm going to make that a flex container. And then we'll put something on the side here. Maybe I'll put an input box. And in here, I'm going to make my input be 200 pixels and my outer, just flex them next to each other. There we go. So you notice as this gets smaller, I start to have problems because it starts going off the screen. Now, to be fair, I could actually flex this and make this so it doesn't shrink, and this one so it does shrink. That is totally fine, but I'm not going to do that right now. Just demonstrate this. So at about, what is that? Maybe 720. That's about as wide as I need that to be. I need these to get smaller after that point. So what we can do, media, screen, and. Now, what that allows us to do is put some conditions on this. And there's a bunch of different conditions that you can put on. So let's pull over here. There's a bunch of different features that I definitely recommend you look up on your own time. I say most of these aren't used commonly. Hover, for instance, is can the user's primary input mechanism hover? If you're on mobile, generally you can't hover. So it might be nice to actually have some CSS style turn on in that case. Right? But most common what we use is width and height. And width is used a lot more commonly than height. So I'm going to say, okay, width. Well, I want to have some rule take effect when my screen is 920 or 720 or less. So I'm going to say max width 720 pixels. This will handle most units, I'm pretty sure. And in here I say, okay, container div, width is going to be 300 pixels, height is going to be 300 pixels. Didn't get much effect, but let's see if we go down a little bit. You can see that change dramatically happened, right? Now, as soon as I hit that, it's going to all of a sudden bring that new style into play. So if I take a look at here, now you can see this one's getting overwritten by this one here. But if I go up, that style just doesn't take effect anymore. Okay, then I go down a little bit more. Oh, it looks like at about 520 we start to have that same issue again. Okay, so maybe let's put another one in here. Put that as 520, and we'll set that to maybe 100. Okay, same one. Now, the reason we do this, a lot of mobile devices are somewhere in this range. In fact, what we call anything below 600 mobile range. Because the mobile device, even though its pixel density is a lot higher, because we gave it this viewport scale here, it's going to actually look at kind of what is the actual size of that display. If I took this out, it's going to look terrible, and none of this is going to work. So for example, if I take that out there, you can see it just kind of do what it do. It's not really taking any of my sizing into account anymore, because the browser is basically trying, it doesn't have this viewport tag, so it's basically trying to treat it like it's a desktop, which mobile is not desktop. So that's why this tag is important in that case, because now it makes those media queries work. Ooh, we should probably want to have one. Oh no, did I break it somehow? I feel like I might have broken it. Let's see, what is my element hitting here? Okay, and if I go below, okay, there we go. Yeah, so you can see now it also doesn't look really good at some of these higher levels, so I probably actually want to maybe about 1080 maybe. So we go here. Okay, max width 1080. Shrink the container at that point, and there we go. It gives us a little bit more. And then we get, so you can see you kind of play around with it this way. A user is almost never going to be seeing it like this. So generally, most browser windows are this size, right? This is probably 1500. I don't know. Let me actually pop this out. We can take a look. So we mouse over our, oops, turn this off. Our body right now is, you can see it in the lower left corner, 1721. So this is on the standard MacBook screen. I would generally say anything from probably 17, this is 12, anything to about maybe 900 is considered desktop, though at 900 you do start occasionally running some issues. Wow, now this is behaving all funny again. I think I might add some sort of weird zoom on there before. Yeah, sometimes these tools don't always do what you want them to do. But generally down to about 1000 is or 900 is considered desktop. Usually 1000 is safe, because this is kind of a small desktop, but you can see most of your elements would still fit on here. 1000 to about 600, 700, what have you, is tablet. So your iPad, your Samsung Galaxy Pad, I don't know if that's actually a thing. Whatever other tablets they have are usually about in that range. And then 600 and below is mobile. So the biggest phone is going to be about this wide. And then as you get down, I usually don't bother going below 300. Because I can say there, I don't think there's a phone or a standard device that exists that's smaller than 300. So you can kind of see a couple of examples that they have here. So yeah, that's essentially what this is for. Max width, there's also min width. So if I want to do this the other way around, maybe I start from 100 and then I would say min width 520, and I'd set the width to 300. And then at that point, oh lordy, something went wrong there. Let's see what is going on. Oh, 1 DVH. I don't know what that is. Apparently, the system thinks that DVH is an appropriate thing. So you can see I get here, and as I get above 500, oh no, it didn't do it. What did I get wrong there? Oh, notice I left the pixels off. CSS does not understand what you're doing unless you do pixels. Okay, so now that's bigger. Same thing. Same exact thing, except it's handled a little differently. This effect only takes effect when the screen is bigger than that width, whereas if it's max width, it only takes effect if the screen is smaller than that width. So that's basically what we use it for. I can say, other than media print, I've not really used any of the others, but they're kind of nice to have just in case. So just to recap, one, this is very important, this meta tag. It tells the system, use kind of this initial scale 1.0. It's saying don't try to be fancy. Don't try to make this behave as something it's not. And when you're doing this, you're telling the browser that you've actually taken into account different device widths and your website can handle them, which is what these meta tags are for. Then once you got your meta tags, at media, which remember the at is a kind of a meta rule almost. Screen is for what displays on the laptop screen. Print is for when you're printing something. Inside here you can have your and then a couple criteria in here. And the big one that we use is width. There's min width and max width. Min width, any of the rules inside here only take effect if the screen is bigger than this. Max width, the rules in here only take effect if the screen is smaller. And this behaves just like any normal rule would, except it only is turned on if the media query is actually active. Anyway, I hope this is helpful, and I'll see you all next time.